And it is Fitna Gael Carrick, Deputy, you have 7 minutes. Excuse me.
Good morning, everybody, and a special welcome to my Mayo colleague, Avril. Thanks for all of your real thought-provoking statements and contributions so far. And I think Deputy Quaid was right when it's very stark, and our stats on employment with disability is just I think one of our great shames. I would like to ask a question. I'll direct it at Avril, but everybody's welcome to come in relation to how remote and flexible working can further be developed. I know COVID sort of brought a welcome maybe wave of new working opportunities for disabled people, and actually what benefits disabled people benefits everybody, because remote working and flexible working has made a huge contribution to family life and different things. But in relation to how it could be supported as a long-term measure to remove barriers and increase employment opportunities, do any of you want to come in on that? I'll start with Avril and then
thank you for that question. Remote working offers an invaluable solution for those of us with cross impairments. What it allows is for individualised and accessible working environment by enabling us to work in our own homes. And you've said it yourself, the pandemic has proved that this approach not only works but works well. It should be the standard and not the exception. Remote work has also wider benefits. It supports rural towns and villages by keeping people living and working locally, which helps smaller communities thrive economically. In terms of employment, the public sector is definitely leading by example with their minimum employment target for disabled people of 4.5% in 2024, and it's rising to 6%. While we're not there yet, these are positive and practical steps, and I think it's now time to build on this progress. And as a DPO, we believe that expanding and supporting remote working is one key solution to achieving greater inclusion in employment.
Thanks. Dr. Hassett wants to come in online there.
Yeah, a couple of things on this, because I'm very much in favour of remote work as a concept, and I think it most certainly, I think all the benefits that Apple have listed are absolutely bang on the money. However, I think there's a couple of things, right? The first is that one of the things that we're seeing at the moment is a massive rollback on working remotely. So people are being pulled back into offices, not just necessarily being encouraged to go back or, being invited back, but we're seeing a situation whereby people are being mandated to go back to offices. So those wonderful sort of benefits that we had that came about, the few benefit that came about with COVID of this kind of flexible remote working is now not it's not as strong as it used to be. We're also seeing a situation whereby many disabled people are having to justify why they need remote working, which can be a very medicalised system. I know of numerous people who have been asked to provide doctor's notes to prove that they need remote work. And just that lack of flexibility in the system, where it's not the system can tolerate sort of flexibility. I suppose one of the things that came up for us shortly after COVID that I think is important to kind of note at this point is that remote working is also not a replacement to making sure that workplaces are accessible. So very often it happens, or it has happened, and we've seen it happen after COVID, that a disabled person will be offered the opportunity to remote work instead of making sure that the workplace was accessible. And that's not inclusion, right? That is a different form of discrimination. And that's not appropriate either. So that's something that we are particularly worried about potentially happening to a greater extent. There was a point that was made really a while ago about wheelchair accessible taxis, which are an important part for facilitating disabled people going into the workplaces, that I just thought might be useful to bring to the committee's attention for a future day, but it is very much related to disabled people's access to work. There is absolutely not enough wheelchair accessible taxis. However, a bigger part of the issue, and something which the Disability Matters Committee could look at very directly, is there's a huge issue whereby there are wheelchair accessible taxis, but they're not accepting wheelchair occupants. So they're turning down, and I've had multiple times where I have requested a wheelchair accessible taxi, they've seen my wheelchair and driven off. And it's very difficult to kind of challenge those situations, but I think we need to look at the system that's happening behind the scenes, and that's something that actually I think the Disability Matters Committee could take lead on. I also know it's something that our sister DPO, ILMI, the Irish Independent Living Movement Ireland, they have been working on this particular issue of accessible taxis. So as a facilitator for ensuring that disabled people can access work, I think it's something worth considering looking at down the line.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I think as both of you were talking about access to work and I suppose in Mayo the lack of efficient public transport. I know in Achill Island they're currently trialling for a year TFI on Shaw, which you can book, and it's proving very, very good so far. But I think there's just a huge shift in general needed for transport for disabled people. When you see the notice that needs to be given on trains, when you're talking about taxi drivers pulling off, but then it makes me look at, at a school age. Okay, the system is far from perfect at the moment. We know there's huge challenges still with bus places. But I don't know why we look at school age and say, okay, we really need to get everybody to school here and we get everybody on a bus. And, some kids are travelling 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. But then when you leave school, you're on your own. Like, surely we should just carry on that system into further education and then workplaces for I think it's a huge shift that's needed, because if we start saying we need extra taxis and we need more accessible bus routes and we need you to be able to book closer to your journey, I think it's bigger than that. I think that if we truly want equal access to work for people with disabilities, it has to carry on. And I don't know, do you want to come in on that larger shift?
With you, Deputy, and what Amy has said, it's not a new problem. This is a problem that has always existed. And speaking from my own experience, it's very demoralising when you ring a wheelchair taxi and they're, oh yeah, no problem. And as soon as you go, oh, I'm in a wheelchair, oh, sorry, the excuses are tenfold. It's the same scenario with public transport as well. Sometimes ramps are broken, or there's blockages in the area that's safe for you to be on, whether it's a bus or when you talk about Irish or trains, you have to give at least 24 hours notice. It might be the case that I may need to travel at the drop of a hat, and that notice isn't always possible. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's a wider issue, it's a national issue, and it's completely demoralising as a disabled person.
Thanks very much, Deputy. We now move on to